So usually you are a founding engineer means you work directly with the founder and you oversee almost every aspect of the product development cycle, working with the founders from the idea to translating it into like what are the features, what is the MVP versions will look like.
And we're in Singapore with Minh, founding engineer at Roster.
So that's one thing, communicating your ideas, preparing for meetings, biggest learning lessons, number one. And then the second one is prioritization. That's also something that I'm constantly working on. There's so much fire going on every day, and there's little time, and like what you need to do must move the lever. So what I usually do is actually tell you the problem, tell you the context, and then actually this one line makes a whole entire difference, which is before you write any code, tell me the plan. And then I look at the whole entire step by step how it does and see if there's any mistake or like there's anything I really improve. So one of the skills is how do you read data and analyze interpret data with even like with AI tools. And then last but not least is learning a little bit like across the different tech stack, makes yourself a little bit diverse. It could also include a little bit of like how to actually use AI to do some of the prototyping.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the CTO Show presented by TechVibe. I'm your host Phillip, and we're in Singapore with Minh. Welcome to the show, Minh.
Thank you. Hello everyone, excited to be here.
Yeah, Minh, I think you have such an interesting background because now you're the founding engineer at Roster and you're based in Singapore.
Yeah.
But you have quite an international background, and I know that you've worked between startups and also corporate. So would love to dive a little bit more into your experience and get started from there.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. When I was 14, I had an opportunity to go to Singapore to study high school. And then, I spent half of my life in Singapore. Grew up in Singapore, then went to university, started my career as a software engineer at Alipay in Singapore. And then was there for almost a year. And then I decided, I wanted to try startup. Taking a step back, actually, I was actually caught my startup bug when I was transitioning between high school and university. So actually, I went back home and I got an internship with a startup in Vietnam called Everest Education, which is an ed tech company trying to innovate after school education. That's where like I spent there as like almost 2 years, kind of like an intern and also part time while I was in university. And while in university, I also had experience with different startups. So like, so after my experience with Alipay, I felt like, I actually wanted to go back to my root as a startup. And that's where I find the most learning experience, and I enjoy my strengths of building things fast. And that's where I decided to go into startup. Over the past 5 years, I had an amazing opportunity to work with 2 startups as a founding engineer, both in the creative economies space. So that's pretty much a quick summary of my career.
That's awesome. I think maybe many young engineers are just graduating, or now they're considering their career path, whether they should join a bigger company or maybe a smaller company like what you're doing now as a founding engineer.
Yeah.
Can you maybe compare and contrast both of those experiences and how that is different?
Yeah, sure. So first thing is, first of all, you need to be like have some really good technical background. So like you just have usually you start your career as either a front end or back end engineer. So pick your domain.
Yeah.
A little bit thing about a startup is like usually you kind of play different hats. So sometimes you kind of also take on a role as a full stack engineer.
Yeah.
Whereas in a big corporate, you kind of specialize, either you're a front end or the back end engineer. That's one big thing. The second part is like with a startup, the pace moves really fast.
Yeah.
And especially in your early career, this is where as a graduate or like someone who started career early, this is the chance for you to move fast and learn as much as possible. So you're optimizing for your learning opportunity, whereas compared to a big corporate, bigger company, there are still companies that move really, really, really fast, but usually in a bigger company, you kind of like more like they want to focus more on growth, focus more on like expertise in certain very deep expertise in certain domains. So if you find that you are like specialized in, let's just say like in fintech, or in like e-commerce, right? Usually you'll find yourself in like these big companies where they build massive infrastructure, massive expertise for you in order to learn this particular domain very, very well.
I see.
So if you kind of want, like, if you want specialize in those domains very well, then corporate is a career, like a career path. But then if you want to focus more on like learning opportunities, moving, building things quickly, prototyping stuff, building MVP, then startup is a good place to start with.
And do you feel like you need to have that big corporate experience in order to learn the foundations before you move to a startup, or could one person just go directly to start?
I think it depends on the domain, certain domains that you are going into. Let's say if you're going into healthcare or fintech, it does help if you have some expertise in domain, because these are the things that you kind of cannot, the room for the margin of error is much smaller compared, like, let's say you are building something like maybe e-commerce a little bit, maybe something like new AI things. Those things are a little bit less error, margin of errors, higher margin for errors. So like, it's okay to make mistakes. You may learn on the go, right? So then that it really depends on the expertise. But usually for young company, they want to optimize for the opportunities for you to learn, and also they want to find people that learn fast, learn things quickly, especially nowadays with AI. You can learn a lot of these domains really quick.
I see.
So it's really not, I don't think it's like a factor that will stop you from considering a startup.
Got it.
And we even see like startups that even like with a very small team going against like big companies, right? Like these domains in healthcare or like in fintech as well. So that's why.
So it's more about like personal preference and where you see your career going in some sense.
Yeah, and risk appetite for sure.
Appetite.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of like finance, where you are at your career, when you are, when you are just starting out, there's less of things you will need to worry about. Settling down, getting married, getting, things like that. Like maybe like the first 5 to 10 years of your career, maybe I would say like under 30. That's the great age range for you to kind of go out there and explore.
I see.
Optimize for that learning opportunities.
Got it.
Whereas when you are at a later stage in your career, like, okay, your risk appetite is much smaller.
So now you're a founding engineer, right, at Roster. For those of, those people who don't know what a founding engineer is or does, like, can you kind of walk through some of your responsibilities or what that job actually is?
Yeah, for sure. So the name is like basically means you are one or if not the first or second engineer in the company. In my case, I've been the first engineer in the startup. So usually you are a founding engineer means you work directly with the founder and you oversee almost every aspect of the product development cycle. So from like working with the founders from the idea to translating it into like actual, what are the features, what's the MVP version look like, and then you even go into actually building it. And then once you build it, you also work with the founder also to develop go-to-market plan. To actually launch the product. Because almost in a startup, you don't almost do anything. And usually for most startups, you don't have a sales team. You don't have people that go out there and sell the product. So it's usually very founder-led sales or like founder-led go-to-market. So you also work directly with the founders to do that. So yeah, basically you're doing product development, engineering to like go-to-market, marketing, growth, and such as things.
What are the biggest lessons that you've learned so far?
I think the biggest lessons that I learned go back to like communication, like how do you are in a very stressful environment, and there's just so many things that happens in the day. So how do you keep your composure and you communicate your ideas with the founders where you get pretty much have very little resources to be successful. So you gotta have to like communicate what your plan is, have a very clear plan. So usually like I make a lot of mistakes in my early career going into meeting with founder not prepared. And no matter what you prepared, like there are always like critical questions that come up. There are things that a lot of things to be improved. Luckily with AI tools nowadays, I kind of build like my own, like almost like a clone version of my founder, and I just ask it like, okay, if you're in a position like this, like what would the founder ask? What are some of the questions asked if I present this idea to the founders? So that's one thing. Getting like communicating your ideas, preparing for meetings. Biggest learning lessons, number one. And then the second one is prioritization. That's also something that I'm constantly working on. Because that there's so much fire going on every day. And there's little time, and like what you need to do must move the lever. So like almost every day I need to like in the past, like moving from the first startup to the second startup, like my resources get even less. So when I was the first startup, like I had a little bit more resources, we had more funding. But then moving to the second startups, like I even had less resources. So like there are much more things to prioritize. So usually like I have to really like spend dedicated time to actually cleaning out my to-do list, making sure that what I will work on for the next week will actually move the lever.
I guess if people want to develop those two skills, but maybe they're not in an environment where you're forced to, like how can someone start to actually practice some of this?
I would say number one is obviously if you're in an environment where it's less stress for you, then obviously you got like, you can look at like people around you, how did they do it, how they are the best leaders, how your manager's doing it, how do they prioritize it. The second thing is like just that usually for like engineers, we kind of like don't really keep a to-do list. That's one of my things that I learned while transitioning into like wearing many other hats, is like I gotta have to keep a very organized to-do list myself. So that's also some things that kind of usually I've that would be something good to have, so that you can make because nowadays with like things like Jira board or like like Notion and stuff like that, it can get a little bit lost on the computer vision and stuff like that. But like having like, let's just say like something to write down, or like having your own kind of things to actually look at it and prioritize your day, that's also something ways to practice.
I think a big part of maybe choosing to work in a startup, especially in a very early stage startup as a founding engineer, is that almost like your future, right, is tied to the success of this company.
Yeah, for sure.
Because maybe a big part of your compensation is like equity in the company and stuff. So I guess, how did you think about, or how did you build enough maybe conviction that this company and this opportunity, or this is kind of the next bet that you want to take your career?
So when it comes to like making the bet, I would say like usually look at like where the markets are going and where are the investment opportunities, or like VCs and the excitement's going to. A few years ago, it was definitely like digital economy, content creation, creator economy is kind of starting to see. If you see like it's starting to like going up, then that's also like there's an opportunity for it, right? Nowadays, this is like AI for sure. But you want to also see like around the landscape, the competition market, where are there like proper companies that are also doing that in that space, right? Let's say if you're going to like my career, let's say if I started in creator economy and I see like if there are not platforms like Facebook or YouTube doing the same thing, but like let's just say like a random startup trying to like define a new market, that could be something that could be good and bad. You know, like you don't necessarily nowadays you don't necessarily need to be like the first market in the world.
Yeah.
So like I would look at like, okay, is there like some other people around doing certain things like that, where the sustainability of that field would be like. Recently, like obviously there's a lot of hype in crypto and things like that as well. So I'm not saying that it will be not successful, but obviously there was a hype and then like things starting, slowing down. So you want to also look at like, don't go for like the kind of immediately the big trends. So you look at companies that are a little bit more you could look at the markets that are a little bit more stable. Could be something that could balance out that risk.
Got it.
Of choosing which startup. And then last but not least, the founder. Do a little bit of research about who the founder is.
Yeah.
Usually, if your risk appetite is less, you may want to look at like go with the founders that usually a second time founder. So they have started something before. So at least they have the expertise or they have the money. Usually if they have started something else and they are exited, they move on to new company, they can bootstrap their own company. So that's a little bit more traction. Second time founders learn things and be more experienced in doing that. Both of the people, the founders I work with are true referrals. So that also helps a lot like in terms of research and knowing who I'm going to spend my next 2-3 years with. And can I make a bet on my future on this company as well.
I'm guessing also now that you're, in this founding engineer role, you're also starting to maybe look at CVs, right? Hiring engineers or even interns, right?
Yeah.
How have you been kind of, evaluating people? Are there certain things that make them stand out or certain skills or even projects that people have on their CVs that make them, more attractive as candidates?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question because I'm actually reviewing CV and things like that for sure. I think obviously depend on different experience and like the kind of the experience. Are we hiring for junior or hiring for like senior positions? I would look at like definitely their technical expertise, like how do actually they wrote that on the CVs, right? Like a lot of people just say like I'm part of a certain project, but then don't specifically mention okay which part of the projects do you actually take part in?
Their contribution.
Yeah, your contribution. Are you working with a team? You're working with like 5 engineers, different from working. You led this single project single-handedly. That's different. Okay, like things like okay, what is the actual? What do you actually do? What was the result? Let's say I increase transactions speed by certain, how many seconds, but whatever, or like I help this project grow from X number of daily active users, things like that. So actual concrete in how they write the project. And then I'll look at like other things that they probably built as well, like whether they're looking to like if you are like a bit more junior, then I'll look at how much diversity your different experience are like. Okay, let's just say like you don't just know one programming language. Probably let's say if you learn 3.
I see.
But they're all like different principles. Because some programming language is like based on the same like let's say this is kind of the same way they write. It's just different. So then I'll look at the diverse experience.
I see.
And then like that shows me that you are willing to learn fast. Because usually when you are early in your career, like the only, advantage in your quality is how fast you can learn and contribute. Yeah,
makes sense. And now I'm also curious, maybe how do you think about the interview process, right? Because traditionally, maybe a lot of people just did leak code exercises or solve these kind of problems.
Yeah.
But now there's obviously a lot of, coding tools, right? Cursor, Windsurf, Microsoft Copilot.
Yeah.
You guys integrate those into your interview process. How do you evaluate if someone is good at using these tools versus not as well?
I definitely do look at like, obviously ask them like, how do you actually use the tool? I would treat it as like, how do I actually use the tool? So whenever you use like Cloud or like ChatGPT to help me with coding, I look at like, how do you actually do the prompt engineering? So like, you don't immediately tell the code, like just like, hey, this is my problem, do it for me. So what I usually do is actually tell it the problem, tell it the context, and then actually this one line makes a whole entire difference, which is before you write any code, tell me the plan. And then I look at the whole entire step by step how it does and see if there's any mistake or like there's anything that I will improve.
Yeah.
And then once I like it, I just say, okay, now go ahead and just write me the code. So I apply the same things with how I would mentor or like how would I talk to other people about how you actually use the tool. So I actually look at how these candidates would use the tool and not just like somehow just like ask the things to do for you yourself, right? So and then like, okay, what kind of problems how do you evaluate the code by the but created by the AI? How do you actually read the whole entire thing? Where can you identify mistakes or things to improve? And then a lot of it is about the critical thinking behind it, because the AI already writes it for yourself, right? Can you spot the mistakes? Can you improve it so that the code is more scalable, right? Like just things like that. I would ask, okay, how do you make it more scalable, right? Where are the errors to improve here?
Interesting. Yeah. Actually, I think YC has a great resource about how do you actually even vibe code, right? Because even now there's best practices depending on whatever platform that you use on, writing code, breaking it down, refactoring it, making sure it doesn't get too messy, all of these things as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by TechVibe, your one-stop IT recruitment solution provider. We connect global companies with top tech talent across Southeast Asia. Whether you're looking for permanent hires, short-term contractors, or employer of record, EOR services, we've got you covered, especially in the IT and digital sectors. Thanks for tuning in. And now, enjoy the episode.
Very cool. And I guess in the spirit of this kind of AI tools disrupting a lot of traditional workflows in engineering, how do you think about what are the most important skills maybe for university students or young engineers to actually focus on to learn?
I would say like a little bit more, or a couple of skills that I would say a little more related to how you actually build product. So one of the skills is how do you read data and analyze interpret data. With AI tools, it actually gets much easier, because I used to go into how I would prepare for meeting with my founder. I usually miss out like things. Let's say I don't know what kind of data I need to present, so I just ask AI, I have this problem and this idea. What kind of data I need to go and find out and present. So that's something. How do you learn how to read data and interpret data? The second thing is like how do you talk to users? How do you evaluate their product ideas? These things. And then last but not least is a little bit of more to learning a little bit like across the different tech stack. Makes yourself a little bit diverse. It could also include a little bit of like how to actually use AI to do some of the prototyping, and not really also depending on like designer, for example. There are a lot of tools nowadays that you can actually that practically you can just put a few screenshots of your original website or product, and then it just turn out a new part of the code. It look exactly almost the same.
Right. Just generate the front end.
Just generate it. So those things I would say will be really replaceable. So you want to find the skills that are like either the technology is not there to replace yet. Like product skill, maybe in the future it could be replaced. But you still have time, right?
Right.
Skills that will take some time for AI to replace, or skills that makes you could stand out among like other 100 engineers. Like how to maybe presentation skill, how to present yourself.
More like the soft skills.
More like the soft skills.
I see.
Which is something that you put two engineers in the room, usually someone that presents better usually capture more attention.
That's super interesting.
It just helps you with career by developing your skills.
It's Speaking of AI tools, I'm just curious, in your existing workflows, what are some of the AI tools that you found the most helpful that you already use?
Yeah, for sure. I use Claude and ChatGPT almost extensively in everything that I do for writing and like brainstorming and stuff. The beautiful thing is that I also like kind of like cross, like I combine the two tools together. So sometimes like I got stuck in one tool, I get the whole entire chat, I put it in Claude.
Oh, wow.
And then ask it to continue the conversation from there. So like sometimes like they just like talking to one friend, you get stuck, like okay,
Talk to another.
talk to another friend, give me another perspective, different, and it works great in certain situation where ChatGPT is stuck. So definitely I use integrate those things. I use V0, which is built by Vercel for my front end prototyping, presenting ideas. And I use Cursor extensively for my own, code, like in the code base itself. A bit of Figma AI and Canva to like generate like images and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I think actually, honestly, all of these tools you can not only just use in your work projects. Like, for example, I think I went to a villa in Bali or something like that, and then I told the owner, "Hey, I can just build you this, front end on Vercel V0, right?" He just did it in 10 seconds, and then the owner was just super impressed, right? Yeah. So I think maybe for the younger engineers out there, or even just people who want to practice with AI, just try using them, right, in their daily life, and I think you just get more and more familiar with these.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Got it. I realized we never even talked about what Roster does. So maybe if you could just give me a 30-second introduction about Roster, what you guys actually do.
Yeah, sure. So Roster is an AI hiring platform for content creators and social media agencies, or basically any one who wants to hire creative talent. So one of the problems that we solve is when it comes to creative hiring, for example, if you want to hire a video editors or designers, a lot of times you don't find people that match with the creative style that you like.
Yeah.
So what we do is we not only match by keywords, but we also look at across different styles of different type of videos, the creators in the same, style. Like let's say if you're doing sport content, or if you're doing like shopping or like things like that, lifestyle challenges, things like that, then we match you with the talent who have worked on this domain expertise. So our mission is very simple. We're trying to use AI to create more jobs for people rather than replacing jobs.
That's great. And do you guys mainly focus on Southeast Asia or also in other countries?
We started because of my founder and my background in content creation. So we started a lot in the creator economy as a use case for it. And when it comes to content creation, a lot of focus has been in yields, but primarily in the United States. So that's where we started. United States and then Singapore, and then a couple of other places. But the platform is kind of global. So we have talents across like 150 different countries.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So I think AI definitely can be applied in, maybe the video editing process or even like graphics. Is there any other implementation of AI in the creator economy space that you find very promising?
I think hiring, obviously we're using AI to help creators hire, streamline their operations. I think finance could be a very interesting aspect as well. Basically, I would say like the tech tool built for any company is almost can be replicated and built for creators. It's just in a very different use case.
I see.
But if you treat like a creators as an entrepreneur, then they're also looking for tools that can help them make money, help them operate, help them run the business. So could be another stripe for AI. Stripe for creators, for example. Could be like what's that company that does is it Deal? That help creators hire a remote team,
right? Employee of records.
Employee records. There's definitely any exciting opportunities that AI is innovating in terms of the operation business world is gonna be applied to the entrepreneurship space, for small companies and small creators as well.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think in the US, even some of the traditional news channels are losing a lot of views because the anchors actually now they have their own podcasts and shows where they interview guests.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
lot of the viewers actually are going more towards this direct to kind of viewer audience, right?
Yeah.
And then I think also in China, there's these mini dramas, right? The 10-minute, 15-minute dramas that get a lot of views.
Yeah, that's
And maybe that's actually the new form of movies, right?
Yeah,
Short-term
for sure.
content.
Yeah, it's constantly changes, and then you see like Netflix also producing their own original content now.
Yeah.
So like companies are competing against for attention, and we will definitely, because of the competition, the landscape could continue to change.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
I think for the last section, what we like to do is like a quick rapid fire questions. Okay.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
just say whatever comes to your mind, and we'll go
Okay.
from there. Okay.
Okay.
So the first question is, what is your favorite AI or tech tool?
Yeah. My first two favorite AI is Cursor. Pretty much I use it for like, debugging my code, optimizing, refactoring code, cleaning up stuff, writing more comments, stuff like that. And the second is V0. When I discovered V0, it's like life changing because I try some other tools. I try to replicate the same style of my the current existing app that I already have, but not that accurate. So with V0, I can just place like almost like a couple of screenshots of the current screen on the product, and then it generates a new screen for me. So that's pretty amazing.
That's great. Second question is, if you're not doing what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be spending your time on?
Can it be like something completely different?
Completely, yeah.
I kind of I'm very much a fitness person, so I would say like I want to be a fitness coach.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know which sport or which type of fitness coach?
I would say like maybe high intensity,
HIIT
cardio, HIIT training. Yeah.
Yes.
That's something that honestly that's my passion. And if I'm not an engineer, I would want to coach people.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Third question is, what's the best piece of advice that you received?
One of the biggest advice that I've got, and I think I've always kind of neglected through my career, but then the more I work with people that shows these strengths, I find like it's just so true. And the biggest advice I've got is that optics matter. So I'll tell you how basically as an engineer, like a lot of us, or like a lot of maybe like things that I pay a lot of attention on, like things that I just want to write code. I just want to, people don't care about how I represent myself.
Right.
It's okay if I am good at technical. I don't have to tell my story. I don't have to trying to impress people. But the thing is, as I grow up in my career, I heard this advice, optics matter, as like in many different forms. So like my first manager tell me, imagine this room is like a glass room. Everything can be very messy inside, but it's about how you present yourself outside. You can grow very large in the ladder.
Wow.
And then even if you're engineers, if you don't focus on like how you present yourself, how you tell stories, you just like ignore these kind of small little things.
Right.
You will never ever grow in your career.
Wow.
And I find it so true. Like obviously you don't try to go out there and be all the way to impress.
Yeah.
But certain things that you gotta have to like pay attention to. Like how you present yourself, how you prepare for meetings, how do you communicate with your peers?
Yeah, definitely a balance. But I guess, if you have the technical, foundation, but then you also present yourself well, you might go farther.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just becoming so true, especially in my role as a founding engineer, it's become just more high stake. Because I interact with like more stakeholders.
I see.
So these things become a little more, more important.
That's fascinating.
And it's something that I have to constantly learn and improve.
That's great. And I think the last question that we like to ask is, for what are you most grateful for?
For sure. I'm very grateful for, first of all, being in Singapore. Growing up, Vietnamese students have always had the American dream. A lot of us want to go to America, and I wanted to go to US. And I'm not saying US is not a great place, but like I'm just so thankful that I have an opportunity to like be in Singapore and take the education here. There are a lot of amazing talent here. The infrastructure, the safety, everything is just so smooth. So I'm really thankful for that. The second thing is like, I'm just thankful for being able to wear different hats and being able to use my strength. I'm not the best engineer that you find that like, you know, level one, like L1 level at like Facebook, Google. But I'm just thankful that I have the ability to see beyond code and be able to build products, be that, you know, a little bit better. I've tried to improve my communication skill and being able to like, you know, like being able to have opportunities where I don't just, I can wear different hats. And I'm very thankful for that because it has been a fulfilling career. Especially in my very early career that I wear different hats from engineering, product growth, working directly with founders at a very like high state. So I'm very thankful for that.
I think the last question actually I want to ask you is, because you're still relatively young, is, you know, where do you see yourself in 30 years?
This way, you mean in location, in
Maybe in life,
stage,
like not just in location.
I think what I want to do is being able to mentor people in different forms. I could settle down and, you know, have children. Maybe that could also be a form of mentoring. But you just want to mentor people, fighting a place where I can continue to build fast. And I'm quite excited about few opportunities in terms of like as I mentioned, healthcare, education. There are a lot of rooms to grow, both in Singapore or in Vietnam. So I'm just thankful that I have a really diverse background and I'm very open-minded to different opportunities. So I think I would just keep a very open mind for the next 5 years. My life has always been like taking risks. It's a funny story, like when I had the opportunity to go, so basically like I took a scholarship test to go in Singapore and I didn't tell my parents.
Wow.
So when I went home and I tell my parents, the high school principal came to Vietnam and they want to meet you guys.
Wow.
The 5 people who were selected. Next morning, and my parents went there, and then we got the offer for the scholarship for me to go to Singapore, and that was like life changing. And it was like that was the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life. And I'm just very grateful now until now. So I don't ever know what the next 5 years, what risk I will take. As well.
Perfect. Well, I mean, maybe that's life, right? It's very exciting, and you never know where things will go.
That's my mantra of life, just take risk.
That's great. Well, Minh, thank you so much for the time. I think it was really interesting, not only just learning about, you know, creator economy and engineering, kind of AI tools, those kind of things, but also maybe some of these foundational principles that allowed you to get where you are today. I think for those in the audience who are more interested in connecting with you or learning more about Roster, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. This LinkedIn Mark-Vu. Mark is my English name. So finding me on LinkedIn. And my company Roster is over there.
Okay.
On my LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me.